Good day everyone. Today we will discuss about the ancient China. Ancient China culture. Ancient Chinese culture before the imperial era has obscure beginnings. Later innovations and contact with foreign cultures has colored Chinese culture. But the underlying forms established during the Shang and Zhou eras still appear in modern Chinese culture in everything from religion to traditions to dress to writing in characters. The Shang people developed cultural forms such as pictographic writing, typical foods and clothes, and emphasizing large-scale construction projects. So later on, matatakil natin yung mga yan, one by one. This tradition were emulated afterwards in the Zhou era when Confucian philosophies developed, the imperial dynasties in modern China. So, as you hear the word Confucian, ito po yung tinatawag na Confucianism. Confucianism is an ancient Chinese belief system which focuses on the importance of personal ethics and the morality. So, dito sa Asian China culture is na ipapasa nila yung kanilang tradition from the present, yung kanilang tradition to the past down to present. So, hindi nawawala yung kanilang meron mang changes, pero yung culture nila andun pa rin. Just like sa ating mga Filipino is kilala tayo bilang yung attitude natin na being magkabayanihan, yung kabayanihan during any calamity na may mangyari sa atin, nandun yung pagtutulungan ng isa't isa. So sa Asian China naman, yung tradition nila, meron mang changes just because the civilization na nangyari, andun pa rin yung culture nila, yung beliefs nila na paniniwala nila. So, matatakil natin later on yung mga modern Chinese culture nila na ginagamit din nila noon until this present day. So, let's proceed. The distinctiveness of the Asian cultures. The Shang and Zhou treasured writing, and this is part allowed them to survive for such long periods of time. Little is known about the cultures of the civilizations that neighbored the Shang Empire, such as the Sanxingdu. So, dahil nga sa karamihan ng nangyari sa kanilang civilizations, maraming mga nangyaring war or something nung time nila, and then they survived just because paano sila nakasurvive? Just because they treasured, just because of the Shang and Zhou treasured writing. So, siguro nung mga time na yon, bored sila, wala silang magawa, nagsusulat sila ng something or mga pwede nilang gawin para malibang sila or gumagawa sila ng paglililok. Just like in the image. Yes, naglililok sila. Para kilala naman natin yung Chinese na business-minded. So, siguro ginagamit nila yan to sell. Para magkaipon ng pera, and then yung pera gagamitin nila sa pambili na ng needs nila and yung mga wants nila. So, next one. We have the origins of Chinese culture. Historical records from the Shang era are scantily, but ancient Chinese historical records that date from 2,200 years ago say that the Han people originated from the Huaxia tribe of the Yellow Emperor who live in the Central Plains. So, I just want to share you with a very, very, very short story about the Yellow Emperor. It is said that all Chinese people have a common It is said that All Chinese people have a common ancestor. Su Wan Yuan Hongdi, or the Yellow Emperor, ancestor. The first ruler of lands that would later become China, his reign began in 2697 before Commonly era, when he united tribes of the Yellow River Plain under the single government. So, yung sinasabi nilang single government is just like a feudalism. Feudalism is a system of government based on the landowners and tenants. For example, meron si king. King is the highest person, o siya yung pinakakilalang person. Kagaya naman sa atin is the president. So, si king, entire empire, gave land to his lords. So, yung medyo mababa sa kanya. So, si lords is basically ruled the land. And to the soldiers. So, soldiers to protect the land. So, parang pababa siya ng pababa yung kanilang position. King down to peasants. So, peasants naman, ito yung mga magsasaka. So, peasants give a small portion of their crops to the king. So, para sa atin is, ito yung parang sa mga nagnenegosyo, yung may mga negosyo, parang ganun sila. So, sa atin naman, we are paying tax to the government. So, mapupunta siya sa sa mataas na tao. And then, yung mataas na tao na yon is merong mag-handle sa money to build some new projects para sa mga mabababa na tao na may mga nangangailangan. So, next one, we have the 9 aspects of Chinese ancient culture. First one, we have the pictographic characters for writing. Archaeological discoveries show that by 1200, the Shang were writing in pictograms that were somewhat similar to the characters used today in Chinese writing. So, as you can see in the image, hindi lang nila ginagamit ng noong ancient culture nila. Hindi lang nila ginagamit nung past time nila, kundi this modern ngayon, kasi nga may changes, 'di ba? So, yung changes na yon, andito pa rin yung pagsusulat nila sa pictographic characters for writing. Ito yung panulat nila, yung nagsusulat sila. As you can see sa image. So, meron pa rin sa kanila yung way ng pagsusulat nila, just like this na nakikita natin sa image. So, kumbaga, culture, they adapted sa present day. So, next one, we have a high esteem for writing, literature, and historical records. The Shang seem to rely heavily on writing for record keeping. So, sa kanila, sa Chinese kasi natin is hindi importante sa kanila yung education. But then, this emphasis on writing and education was important part of ancient culture. And it was also important in all the imperial eras beginning with the Qin conquest in 221 BC and the ending in 1912. So, binigyan nila ng halaga. Bakit nila binigyan ng halaga? Just because ng ancient culture kasi nila, parang nila yung halaga ng writing and education, yung mayroon kang knowledge. Bakit may historical records na sinasabi? Kasi nga, once na meron silang pinublish or something, magkakaroon ng background or ng knowledge yung mga magbabasa nun. Hindi lang para sa, for example, hindi lang para sa this generation lang ito. So, pag nagkaroon ng another generation, dun po, magagamit po nila yon, yung knowledge na yon, yung records na yon, para ma-review nila kung what happened in that day or what happened in this day. Just like that. So, next one, we have the Number 3, the style of arts and crafts. The Shang produced large, heavy, and geometrically intricate bronze objects in the characteristic styles that the Zhou claim, who were initially subjects of the Shang dynasty, continued after they took over the empire. So, dito yung arts, paano yung way nila sa arts and yung pagkuka ng crafts. So, basically, pag meron tayong arts or meron tayong ginrawing or something, may meaning. So, hindi lang siya meaning, may kahulugan sa buhay ng isang tao. Just for example, ito, anong motives nito na nakikita nyo? Are you familiar with yin and yang? So, ito siya guys. Dito sa part na ito, makikita po natin dito sa side na to, makikita natin ng all around, pure black siya. And then, may white sa center. So, it symbolize niyan, kahit sa isang tao, meron siyang super negative attitude, sa kaloob-looban ng puso niya, meron at meron pa rin kabutihan. Unlike naman dito sa kabila, more on positive sa panglabas. Pero hindi natin alam, dito sa kaloob-looban ng kanyang puso, ay meron tinatawag na masama or nasa loob ang kulo na sinasabi nga nila. So next one, we have a preference for jade. Are you familiar with jade? Jade po, ito po yung gemstone na sinasabi. The Shang prized jade object and usually high compared to other cultures, and the people in Zhou era did as well. So, itong jade na ito ay ginagamit nila hindi lang noong ancient Chinese culture, kundi pati ngayon, this modern times. Hindi lang siguro mga Chinese ang nagtatangkilik ng jade, especially din tayong mga Pilipino. So, ang jade, ginagamit mo nilang palamuti, as you can see in the image. And also, ginagawa nilang ganito siya, pang display sa bahay. Well, actually, hindi lang naman mga Chinese ang may ganito. Although, siguro pati mga Pilipino may mga ganyan, especially sa mga business owner. May mga ganyan kasi they believe na mga pangpaswerte, ganun. Yan. So, next one, we have the tea culture. During the Tang Dynasty and afterwards, tea was major export to the Theban Empire along the Tea Horse Road. And it is still China's most popular natural health beverage. So, ang tea, para sa kanila, is meron siyang good effect sa health ng isang Chinese. So, kung sa ating mga Pilipino is kape, gatas, ang ating na iniinom, madalas nating iniinom, sa kanila naman is yung tea. Because they believe na yung tea is having a good health pag uminom sila, ang mga Chinese. So, about 80% of the world's green tea is grown in China. So, most probably na kung compute natin sa 100%, 80% ang nagtatangkilik sa green tea because Chinese commonly consume dozens of varieties of tea. So, yun lang. So, dito, yan, yung image. So, dito na tayo sa the silk culture. Another Chinese characteristic is streaming from the ancient past in the love of silk. So, kung tayong mga Pilipino, we have a costume or we have a traditional kasuotan just like the kimona. Sa kanila naman is yung nandyan sa image, yung sinusuot ng mga Chinese. Yes, especially today, Chinese culture ngayon. So, yan po yung ginagamit nila to wearing their dress. Yes, ang gamit po nila yan. Hindi lang nung Shang Dynasty era. Even now, ginagamit pa rin nila until now. Kasi nga, gaya nga nabanggit ko, culture to culture, then naipasa sa next generation to another generation. So, next one, worship of heaven and rulers. Kung yung mga Chinese is meron silang God, they call that Shangdi because he represented heaven. Zhou era, it was believed that Shangdi preside over big issues such as war, harvest, natural disasters, and the succession of dynasties. So, they worship, especially din sa atin, we are worship, they were worship din. So, meron din silang God na pinaniniwalaan. Just kagaya sa atin, meron din tayong God na pinaniniwalaan. So, more on kwan kasi siya, yung mga familiar sa gods and goddesses ng Egypt. So, yan naman po sa kanila. Ang tawag naman sa god nila is Shangdi. So, nagpupunta sila dyan to pray and worship by their God. So, next one, we have the folk religion and Taoism. So, worship their own ancestors and notable dead people. So, dito po guys, is they worship also their ancestors who is already dead. Yung namatay na, they worship. So, ang tawag po doon, sa paniniwala nilang yon is ancestor worship. Kasi they believe na pag nag-worship sila sa kanilang God or sa kanilang ancestor, pag nag-worship sila doon, gagaling yung kanilang karamdaman, magiging healthy sila, ganoon. Yung belief po nilang yon. This concept were part of the folk religion. So, ayun po, part po siya ng kanilang religion or the beliefs. So, the last one, yan, a tradition of mega building projects. The Shanghainzhou also set a tradition for a big construction and engineering projects. It is the recorder the first Xia king named King Yu was granted the Xiang kingdom at the age of 53 because he had a very successful in controlling the floods of the Yellow River through gargantuan engineering projects. So, si King Yu, siya po yung nag-construct sa building projects na ito. So, at the age of 53, kasi meron siyang gagaya nung nasabi, have a control sa mga floods na kasi yung pansin naman, di ba, nasa tubig siya. So, yung tubig na yun, di ba, may tendency na pwedeng umapaw or what. Pero, si King Yu, have a successful, that's because of the controlling the floods of the Yellow River. Meron siyang kakayahan to control the water. Yes. So, the succeeding ancient empires continued this political and economic policy. Large empires sometimes use millions of laborers for a single project, such as the Grand Canal. Even in the modern times, the building of the mega construction projects. So, ayun na nga po guys, even in modern times, the building of mega construction projects such as the Three Gorges Dam. So, yung Three Gorges Dam is the biggest and most expensive dam in the world. So, ngayon ko lang din alam na yung Three Gorges Dam pala is the very expensive project sa buong mundo. So, is inspired by the ancient tradition. So, mga Chinese pala yung may gawa doon. So, mga Chinese. So, that's all for this day. I hope na meron po tayong natutunan. So, thank you guys.